You are listening to the Bitter Medicine Podcast on KWAZ Radio. Welcome to the Bitter Medicine Podcast, where it's all about Black empowerment. Our show focuses on Black news and entertainment, arts, science, economics, history, people, and strategies that uplift, empower, and motivate Africans within the diaspora. And now, your host, whose favorite color is black, Goku.
Welcome back to the Bitter Medicine Podcast. Saturday night shoot the breeze with your host, Koku. Let's have a nice little relaxed conversation tonight. Much needed conversation. The Revolutionary Matron is in the chat room saying greetings. As soon as I go live, YouTube tells me I have no viewers. Just before I went live, it said I had a handful. So YouTube at it with the shenanigans again. If you missed it, you missed a great thing today. The Solution Summit, hosted by the Revolutionary Matron on her podcast, The Learning Curve, occurred today. It was about a 4-hour discussion. Myself, the pro-black perspective of Oni Tasse was there. Medjai Commander, who's a regular co-host with the Revolutionary Matron on her show, The Learning Curve, was there. Organic African Paradigm, who some of you might be familiar with from YouTube and Twitter, and from the Pan-African Discussion Discord, was there. Amma Bookman was there. A few other folks whose names I can't recall, but I did see a lot of you guys who show up for the Bitter Medicine Podcast. I did see a lot of you there today too, and I want to say I am happy and proud of you guys for crossing over, and today really showed how so many folks who listen to my show, showed me this, have actually crossed over into the other shows now on KWAZ Radio. So before I go any further, let me just remind you guys that this show, the Bitter Medicine Podcast, is part of a podcast network called KWAZ Radio. There are other shows on the network that you are invited to check out.
This is D Webb with the Harsh Reality Podcast, asking you to tune in where we tackle the news of the day that affects our community, only on KWAZ Radio.
Peace, family. This is Oni, inviting you to listen to the pro-black perspective, where black problems are addressed with black solutions.
Greetings, fam. Tune in to The Learning Curve with me, the Revolutionary Matron, on KWAZ Radio.
Yes, indeed. Make sure to check out those other shows on KWAZ Radio. And if you were a fan of the Queen's Council podcast, reach out to them and say, hey, I used to like catching you ladies podcasts, and what's going on? I'd like to see y'all come back. Reach out, because sometimes that's all it takes, man. It's just you showing your appreciation, and I appreciate all of you who come out to check out my show as well as the other shows on KWAZ Radio. In the chat, I see Mchaka97 showed up. That's Machiavelli, who is always kind of cracking jokes behind the scene on the Pro-Black Perspective Lives. He's here, all right, saying we in here, we here. The Revolutionary Matron says the All-Star panel is in the house, at KWAZ Radio. Absolutely. The Pro-Black Perspective is here as well. Like I mentioned, he and I, along with the matron, were on her show earlier today for the Solution Summit. Daily Affirmation by Pauline is here saying good evening. Kevin Carre 42 is here as well saying puck, screw tube. Absolutely. Write it in tut next time. Next time, write it in tut, since that's a new language we got, right? So thank you guys for coming through, checking me out. Did you guys, before I get into the Shoot the Breeze topics tonight, did you guys see the model, I guess you call him, Tyson Beckford, and that interview he did with Vlad? And Vlad says to him, you know, Kim K called you gay. And this dude became Jamaican real fast. Look your pussy hole, I know. And I mean, this dude launched into his full Jamaicanness when he was talking about the fact that this lady called him gay. Now, here's a funny fact. When I went to college up here in the smack dab in the mid 90s, I could remember seeing posters with like the what was like the beginnings of the official kind of LGBTQ stuff, and I remember him being in those collages of people that were gay. That's the funny thing. And all these years later, in fact, Kevin Carre might remember that too. All these years later, you know, to hear he was accused of that, which I didn't know, and to hear him launch off, like M. Chaka said, jump straight into patois, right? Funny fact, no pun intended, says Daily Affirmations by Pauline, right? Well, this dude went straight into, like, your pussy hole, Ross clots, and I mean, I think he said something about Aki and Saltfish inside that rant too, I'm not sure. But it was just funny. It was just real funny style to see that go down. So yeah, I just wanted to bring that up and ask if you guys saw it. Apparently Mchaka saw it. Seemed like the rest of you didn't. But that shit was funny as hell. Then Major Hype, the Caribbean quote-unquote king of comedy, spoofed it the same day. But I gotta say, Major Hype wasn't as funny as Tyson Beckford when he just suddenly launched into Jamaican patois. That shit was wild. So anyway, that out the way. How are you guys doing today? Before we start the show, you guys let me know in the chat how you're doing today. I think oftentimes, you know, you guys hop on here with me, and I don't know if you're having a good day, a bad day, or in between days. So you guys let me know. How are you guys doing today? And also, you know what? Let me do this too. Let me jump on air in the Discord. Yeah, let me jump on air in the Discord. If you guys feel to hop on the Discord, I want to add your 2 cents to the topics that we're discussing, by all means, you can hop on the Discord and do so as well. We only have a few posted topics tonight, so we shouldn't be too long. We did spend a long time today during the Solution Summit. Right, make sure you guys go and watch the playback if you weren't there yourself today. All right, make sure to watch the playback. So again, how are you guys doing before we get into the topics for tonight? Daily Affirmations by Pauline says, I am having a good evening. Mellow day with no stress. Man, that's a great feeling, right? I couldn't tell you the last day I was able to have a day with no stress. That's a good feeling, and I'm happy for you that that was the case. You know, we need to work towards more of that, especially in our community, right? So it seems like only Daily Affirmations by Pauline is going to say how her day was, but that's all good. The first prompt for tonight Speaking of daily affirmations by Pauline, make sure you guys check out her channel as well. Check her out on social media. The first prompt is thoughts or theories on whether 9/11 was a terrorist attack. I see we have Kevin Carre in the Discord. What's going on, Kevin Carre? I don't hear Kevin Carre. I don't know what's going on there. I don't hear your voice. But Ogun is here. Ogun says peace to everyone. Ogun was on earlier with the Revolutionary Matron on her show, The Learning Curve, which the Revolutionary Matron just said, I'm having the best day ever. I like to hear that. I like to hear when people are having real good days, stress-free days. That's a good thing. Ogun was on The Learning Curve earlier. They were recapping the Solution Summit from earlier today. So that was a good conversation as well. Again, make sure you guys check out all the shows on KWAZ Radio. So the prompt for today is... The first prompt is thoughts or theories on whether 9/11 was a terrorist attack by bin Laden. Also, was the diaspora affected by 9/11, and if so, how? Well, how do I begin answering this? And you guys in the chat, post your thoughts on this prompt as well. I like to read them live on the air because I like to see what people's heads are. I can remember the day clearly. I can remember, living in Brooklyn at the time. I think I was here 6 years at the time, living. And I could remember how surreal it was. I can remember going on the roof of the building where I worked in Brooklyn and having a view of the Twin Towers and seeing the black smoke and all that day. And I got up on the roof just after the second plane hit. So when the first plane hit, I remember these folks at my job were talking about like a plane just crashed into the World Trade Center. And so the thought was that it was some amateur Cessna size plane or something like that. No one believed it was more than that. And so then we were on our way up to the roof of the building, and as we were getting ready to go up the steps, word came that a second plane hit. So now everyone's like, ooh, something's up here. And of course I went up there, you could see the flames and the billowing smoke and all that from the roof. Over the years, I've looked into it, I've listened to everything that was said concerning it. I've listened to all the theorists, and what I would say is this: put nothing past these white folks. Put nothing past these white folks. Everything is deception. One of the things I remember reading early was, what's that? It was circulating widely for a while. It was in a PDF form. It was, oh man, I forgot the name of it. The Synagogue of Satan, I think it was called. Where essentially, they were showing you the history of the Uish people. And the Uish people are folk who play two sides of the game. And I remember seeing these early reports. There was videos of it too. I think they had scrubbed a lot of it at the time from the internet. But I don't know if a lot of you know this, but a lot of Jewish folks over on the New Jersey side of things who were able to view the World Trade Center, they said there was a good contingent of them that was celebrating. Right? When you look at some of the evidence, the Jewish dude who owned the buildings, who had that huge, what did he do? He increased the insurance or something he did on the buildings, whereas when the buildings were destroyed, he profited from it. And I'm talking like a few days before the attacks. And you see this a lot with white folks. You'll see white folks suddenly sell all the stocks in a company that then all of a sudden tanks. Like, this is what they do, right? Pump and dump. This is what they do. And the Jewish in particular play both sides of the game. And also when you look at, like, who was held responsible for the attack by Bush and them, when none of the folks who were in the planes, who hijacked the planes, were from this particular country that the U.S. just came out of the other day, right? So, I mean, and there's more. There's loads of information. The problem is, and especially with our people, with black people understand the term conspiracy theorist to be crazy person. Black folks also, again, this goes back to the religiosity of black folks, is black folks can't believe that there is really evil out there. And so black folks tend to kind of stick their heads in the dirt and pretend that it's not happening. But yeah, so Daily Alphabet by Pauline says, wow, had no clue any person in this hemisphere could be celebrated. Let me ask the folks that are here. I'm pretty sure Kare would know, but for some reason I can't hear him in the Discord. I don't know why that is. It was definitely the case that they had some Israeli dudes. In fact, they had detained some of them. This is a fact. They had detained some of them because of these celebrations and stuff like that. And they were caught by people on videotape at the time, you know, celebrating. As a matter of fact, I remember hearing reports of dudes in prison, in Rikers and whatever, or what have you. Like, they had early information that this thing was going to go down, and they were in the windows trying to peer through the bars to see if they could see, you know, some of it unfold. So I'm saying that to say this: if you want to justify, right? If you want to justify going after a Bin Laden, not Bin Laden, but, well, Bin Laden too, but if you want to justify going after, what's my man from Iraq again? Saddam Hussein, right? And you remember Bush and them had a hard on for Saddam. If you want to justify those types of things, you will create these narratives. And let me tell y'all something. For a place like the U.S., losing 3,000-4,000 people in that incident is nothing to them. Nothing to them. So I personally believe that there's something to it. Over the years, I'm sure you guys have heard all the folks talking about the fact that planes hitting those buildings could knock it down. I'm not a structural engineer or anything, so I'm not certain of that. But I know that there was a building to the side that wasn't hit, that all of a sudden went down too, owned by the same dude who owned the two buildings. So you make of that what you will. What I will say about the diaspora is that once that bullshit happened, if you remember, they made it real difficult to travel. And some of that still echoes today, actually, where you have to go through all these hoops just to get on a plane. Right? They did that, and if you remember, they hemmed up. Where was the guy from? Was it Somalia or something like that? They hemmed up some Somalian, someone from the continent, who they claim had a shoe bomb on and all kind of stuff like that. So it affected those groups. Heightened sense of military in a lot of different countries, even on the continent as well, because they have that Islam bullshit going on there too. So, you know, that's what I could think of. Does anyone else, can anyone else think of how it affected the diaspora? Right? Can anyone else think of how that affected the diaspora? Daily Affirmation by Pauline said, I saw the attack on TV and thought it was a show. Surreal is exactly how I felt. Yeah, a lot of people, from my understanding, who were watching the morning shows like Good Morning America and all that stuff, they thought it was like a TV show. They thought it was fake. Ogun says 9/11 was an American military domestic terrorist attack. Yeah, I feel so as well. So that's my take on that. First prompt, thoughts or theories on whether 9/11 was a terrorist attack by bin Laden. I'm not certain. In fact, I'm not certain if bin Laden was involved, although I do think they took credit, and if they want to take credit, that's fine. But I'm certain that Bush had a heads up. If you guys can remember back then, it's 20 years today, right? If you remember, Bush had a heads up about it, and they didn't act. They kind of had the word that it was coming. They didn't act. And the morning when it happened, he was in some school somewhere reading to some school children. They had to scoop him up out there quick and get him on his way. But, you know, in my opinion, that was a way to justify war in the Middle East. And what's crazy, speaking of the diaspora, like, they claim some of those guys who were in those planes learn how to fly a plane in my hometown, right? But for some reason declined learn how to land the plane. Ain't that some shit? No, we don't need to learn how to land the plane, right? They just need to know how to fly the plane, apparently, and no one thought that was strange, right? But anyway, that brings me to the second prompt. If you guys, I'm gonna tell you now, if you guys don't, I see the Revolutionary Matron is on it. Matron, say something for me. Let me see if I can hear you. No, why can't I hear the Matron? Why is that? I can't hear the Matron. Don't know what that's about. So what I will do, I will close the Discord and I will reopen it again and see if that allows. But like I was saying, I'm gonna tell you guys tonight, if you guys aren't going to really respond to the prompts, you know, which is fine, this is going to be a quick show tonight. All right, but we've had a long day of shows as it is, so if you don't respond, that's cool. All right, Matron, can you say something now? I don't know what's up. Why is that not working? All right, so I'm not gonna be able to troubleshoot that on air, I doubt. Kare is saying something as well, and it's not coming through. So you guys can post your comments in the chat, I guess. I guess that's what we'll have to do. For some reason, I'm not getting sound out of the Discord. I don't know why that is. There's always some shit with this Discord and OBS and all this stuff, so my apologies. Maybe if you guys leave and come back in, maybe something will change. You know, we'll see. So yeah, Demetria says she'll type it in the chat, so that's cool. Coach Pete is here. Coach Pete says that don't make no sense. It's an inside job. I mean, if I'm a flight instructor and you come to me and tell me no need for learning to land a plane, I'm gonna have a problem with that. You know, and from what I remember, you guys should be able to remember as well if you're old enough. From what I remember, Bush and them had known something was coming, and they didn't put up the proper defenses to protect against it, right? So let me grab the second prompt for tonight. Again, you guys can post your comments in the chat. I'll read them on air. The second prompt is an interesting one too. A little bit of a downer, but the second prompt is important. How many of you, while I'm pulling up the second prompt, how many of you here today tuned into, you didn't have to have commented, but tuned into the Revolutionary Matrons Solution Summit earlier today? Right? So Kare is saying that Bush knew way back in August. Yeah, my memory kind of told me that they had known for some time before that it was coming, and they did nothing about it, right? So the next prompt is death of Michael K. Williams due to a drug overdose. After overcoming the odds and making it in the industry and being role models, why or what do you believe makes people from the diaspora with that level of success fall victim to drugs, etc.? Right? So while you guys process that prompt, let's just say R.I.P. to Michael K. Williams. He played, I mean, he was he was great at his craft. Let's keep it real. The one knock I had against him, I think you guys already probably know what that knock is, right? The one knock I had against him was he was a little bit too willing repeatedly to play these gay characters, these queer, as they call it, characters. The one thing I always liked and respected about Denzel Washington was that Denzel, he would tell up and coming black actors at one time. Looks like he kind of shied away from it now. Maybe because people know about it. I don't know. But at one time, he used to tell young black actors, like he told Will Smith, don't you go out there and kiss no man in the mouth now. You know what I mean? you display black masculinity and manhood. Don't you go out there kissing nobody in the mouth. And one thing with Michael K. Williams, he was willing to go there. And I think Hollywood really liked him for it. In fact, he blew up off of the Omar character from the show The Wire. And if you were a fan of the show like I was, Omar's character, he was a street dude who used to rob drug dealers, but he also was gay too. And they loved that shit. I think he was like on the cover of Time or something for that character. Like he was highly ranked for that. And, you know, I just wish that he wasn't so recognizable as the black dude who would do the queer roles. Daily Affirmation by Pauline correctly says that he was of Bahamian descent. Yeah, his mother's from Nassau, right? Both Daily Affirmation by Pauline and Janelle says they couldn't get in to the Solution Summit from earlier today. It was like the matron is saying right now, I don't know why you couldn't get in, because it was on YouTube. You just had to, you know, you just had to click the link and go on YouTube while the show was on, I guess. But yeah, you could definitely check out the playback. It was a good show. It was a good show. I think when it happens again, and it will happen again, I think it will give us the opportunity to actually talk about what have you done in the physical realm since we did that Solution Summit. So you guys should tune in. There's some good game in there. I'm going to tell you all, man. Medjai Commander, Pro Black Perspective, that's the only time I say. The Learning Curve, and a few others who she had on there. I'm a Bookman, Organic African Paradigm. In fact, Organic African Paradigm really stood out to me because he is on the continent, from the continent, and he gave us some perspective of what's actually happening on the continent that I think is a little bit different than my understanding of what was going on there. So you guys should tune in and check it out. It was a real good conversation. Don't be thrown off by the length of the conversation. I'll just understand that there's some good gems during that time. The Learning Curve with the Revolutionary Matron said earlier, it was the first time in my life that I critically looked at government. It also took a lot of men away because they needed boots on the ground. Lastly, a major transfer of wealth happened. So that's the thing that you'll always see. And it's something that we folks need to keep an eye on too. Our ancestors of yesteryear, not long ago, but just the other day, so to speak, when they were shoe shine boys and all that stuff, back in the days, they used to air hustle those white boys. As a matter of fact, there's a show on Epix right now called The Godfather of Harlem about Bumpy Johnson, the Harlem hustler from back in the day. And you'll see on that show, they show you how this black shoe shine guy, he's right there, he's quiet, shining shoes, but he's listening to like Bumpy's conversations. He's listening to Malcolm X talk, you know, so that's something that they used to do, those porters and the hotels and all that kind of stuff. And they used to go and bet on horses and put money on stocks and all kind of stuff like that from what they heard from these guys. And we got to be about that more. Whenever there's some tragedy, there's an opportunity. Now, you might not be able to get in those major transfers of wealth, but you can get in. You can get in somewhere, and you can make something happen for yourself. Whenever there's a tragedy, there's an opportunity. You always keep that in mind. Those white guys preach that, right? When there's tragedy, there's opportunity, right? So the The Revolutionary Matron says, turn it on. She's talking about the episode from earlier today. Turn it on during your work day. She's been told that listening to her shows at work gives perspective. Absolutely. You know, all of these shows on KWAZ radio, if you listen to any of them, Harsh Reality, the Pro-Black Perspective, etc., The Learning Curve, you listen to that while you do your work, while you got your computer doing work, it's a good time. Trust me, it gets your mind right, right? Kevin Curry 482 says, watch crypto skyrocket in the next few months, right? So yeah, so about Michael K. Williams, cool actor. I think he will actually be missed. I think there are times that you'll see different roles and you'll say, man, he would have been perfect in that role. It's a shame that he had those demons. I think a lot of our people have those demons. I think Kevin Carey put it succinctly: peer pressure, stress. You know, to be a straight guy and pretending to be a gay guy in some of these roles, and like I said, kissing dudes in the mouth, that can't be good for your soul, right? I know it's a craft, but that cannot be good for your soul. You know, because like I crack jokes with people. I tell them, like, straight men are allergic to other men, right? And for you to be a straight guy and pulling off that kind of stuff convincingly, that's not good for your soul. And he also played a slave in 12 Years a Slave, if my memory serves me correct. Yeah, he was on the slave ship. And from what I understand, when they shot that, I think they shot that on a plantation somewhere down south. From what I understand, he had to get a lot of therapy, because apparently playing that kind of role and being immersed in the role in that location, you know, in what's known to be a slave plantation, yeah, he had to go and get serious counseling for that stuff. You know, that's a reminder too that you got to choose your lifestyle and your livelihood wisely. When we had the Solution Summit earlier today, I think it was the brother Kofi brought up Dr. Bobby E. Wright and some of the concepts that he talked about. And Bobby E. Wright used to talk about this political social paradigm back in the 70s and 80s of how young black folks were killing themselves, committing suicide, right? Because of them being dominated in this system. They kind of gave up. I've said it before on this show, a lot of these dudes who are running around in the streets doing all this dumb shit, shooting people and being shot at, a lot of that is suicide, right? A lot of that is suicide by someone else's hand. They just want out. They just want out. They could take a few people, a few others who also want out on the way, they'll do that too. A lot of our folks, especially a lot of our young folks, give up. We're blessed to be here. If you're in my age group and older, we're blessed to be here. A lot of people gave up, and they gave up in different ways. They gave up with heavy drug use. Some people lost their minds. You know, I've known people over the years, young people, to lose their minds. They gave up. That's all that is. You know, because it's a tough road. Like James Baldwin said, to be conscious is to be angry all the time, to paraphrase. And so a lot of folks just say, I'm just going to check out. I'm just going to eat, right? Which can also be a drug. of sorts. I'm going to snort something. I'm going to drink excessively. You know, I want to do all of this stuff to cope within myself, knowing full well that I'm not really doing any work to address the larger issue. And it's because a lot of folks believe the larger issue cannot be addressed. So while that's a failing, that's really a failing on the rest of our parts, and that's a failing on our ancestors' parts, because a lot of our ancestors, to be quite frank, just scratched out a nice meager existence in the current paradigm that we're in, and they pass that on to us. Like, for example, it wasn't uncommon. In fact, I've heard it in my own life. It wasn't uncommon for someone to tell you, now, you stay on that job now, right? You stay on that, you know, it's hard to get work out here. You stay on that job and you blah, blah, blah. And, you know, that's that old school thinking like my grandfather and them had, right? You make good and you stay on that job. They ain't shit at the job, but you stay on that job to make your couple of coppers, as he would say, right? And, you know, you just push on, you just live life and you die. And that's a sad existence, man. If you focus on that stuff, you and I would go crazy. If we focused on that's our existence, you and I would start drinking and taking, you know, doing all these heavy drugs and all this kind of stuff. So it's something we have to check. We have to check ourselves. We have to be honest with ourselves. And really and truly, we got to check in with other people. I started the show trying to check in with you guys. How y'all doing? How was your week? And I was pleased to see some people respond to like, yo, I had a damn good day. And I really appreciate that. That actually makes me feel better. Even if I didn't have quite as good a day, I feel better by that. And so we got to start learning to cope better. You know, I saw a video of that brother, Michael K. Williams, in the park close by where I live. In fact, he's from a projects close by where I live here in Brooklyn. And, you know, he was dancing and having just a good old time. Just fun, good old time. And what's crazy is, well, two things are crazy, actually. What's crazy is when DMX died and they did the tribute for him at one of those award shows, Michael K. Williams actually was a big part of the tribute to DMX. And remember how I mentioned that model Tyson Beckford going full Jamaican in that Vlad interview? What's real crazy about that? In that interview, which just happened like the last couple of days here, last, say, week or two, right? They talk about Michael K. Williams because he was talking about how he went and did a photo shoot back in his early days. And one of the guys he did a shoot with was actually Michael K. Williams. And he was giving him props, like how cool it was to see how Michael K. Williams blew up. And, you know, it hit so poignantly because, you know, that brother died like, you know, literally like a day or two, you know, a few days later, you know? So, you know, it's a sad tale, but it's a tale that we need to take special notice of. A lot of our folks are suffering. Let me tell you something. If a lot of white folks are out here suffering on drugs, you know a lot of our folks out here suffering, right? Now, for them, it's a different thing. They have imposter syndrome going on and all that kind of stuff, where they know that they ain't shit, but the system that their ancestors have cultivated and maintained allows them, through their whiteness, to still think that they're better than the best black person there is, right? So a lot of them do that stuff because they know they ain't. They know they're garbage, right? And that's just keeping it real. Kevin Carey 42 says depression can come in the form of people acting like they're happy. Yeah, a lot of the most bubbly people that you see on the face of things are quietly super depressed, man. Super depressed. Daily Affirmations by Pauline says escapism is real. Absolutely. And the thing is, you know, we all have our escapism. We all have our method of escapism. Some of us put it into being seriously political, right? If you've ever known folks who eat, breathe politics, eat, breathe debating about politics, a lot of that barbershop type shit, a lot of that is like trying to stave off the depression. But when those guys go home behind closed doors, there's some sorrow there. There's some depression there. Daily Affirmations by Pauline says, I give thanks daily for being here with a sound mind, mobility, and overall good health. Many people feel abandoned, like they aren't worth anything, hence my positive daily affirmation. So that's right there. The Daily Affirmations by Pauline is giving you the insight as to why she does what she does. You know, some folks really need that daily pickup, man. You know, some people really need a kind word, and we must always be mindful of that. You know, I remember when I was in government school back home, there was kids who would do dumb shit. And when the teachers investigated, they just want attention. You know, I had an aunt who used to teach remedial reading. I'm talking about kids who were like in 9th grade, but only reading at like a 5th grade level, maybe 4th grade level. And a lot of that acting, and by the way, some of the nicest people you could imagine, you know, but did some offbeat shit because they just wanted a little pick-me-up. They want attention, right? Sometimes getting in trouble for some of these youths out here, it's just getting some attention, you know. The learning curve with the revolutionary matron says, I think there are a lot of Africans that are trying to escape the reality Wazungu puts us in, and the feelings of powerlessness are totally debilitating. Absolutely. So when going back to the topic of this shoot debris prompt, Michael K. Williams, again, may he rest in peace. You know, when you there's someone knocking, making a noise outside that's just messing with me, but when you think of the system that we're in, as the matron says, the reality that Wazungu puts us in, right? And now you're trying to make your little living, trying to make your mark on the work that you do, which in his case was acting or being an entertainer. And for you to really make something happen, you have to do stuff like you know, make out with dudes on screen. That's kind of uncool. You know, that's kind of uncool. That stuff will send you over, man. Ogun says African man and African woman equals the African family. That's not for Hollywood. We create African studios to produce our films. Daily Affirmation by Pauline says, I call it masking. So many people cover up their pain and no one would ever know. Absolutely. There's a lot of people we've known in our lifetimes who were suffering. And they passed on, and we never really knew it until we got some more insight in more recent years on how to identify it, right? There's people who've passed on and you just didn't know it. To address what Ogun says, you know, there's this goes back to what we were talking about for the Solution Summit earlier today. Y'all hold on 1 second for me. Hold on. Yeah, sorry about that. KW Don 7 is with us today. He says Michael K. Williams was a black weaponized entertainer. I can never trust an entertainer. You know, yeah, generally you can't. Generally you can. An actor acts. Let's just keep it real. An actor acts, for example. But to go back to what Ogun was saying, he said we create an Africamet Studios to produce our films. You know, I have to give credit to folks. A lot of black folks are out here creating films and creating positive music and positive images. You know, if you check out Kevin Carre, he promotes, you know, the beauty of the black woman, for example. The problem is, honestly, say in America, a lot of the independent black folks who are making films aren't being well supported. Like if you talk to Gunnar the Sauce, who did the Raging Elephant film, he tried to work with several different black collectives and none of them really gave him the time of day. He had to take out loans to put together his first film. And since that time, like I've been talking to him behind the scenes, like, yo, when are you gonna do another film? And he's kind of just writing, and a part of that, I believe, is because he still owes money for the first film. You know, a part of that issue comes about, not per se in his case, but a lot of independent black filmmakers, for example, are really trying to make films that showcase their talent so that they could break in to Hollywood. And it's time for us to get off of that. It's time for us to get off of that, and we got to start putting in the legwork of getting our films out into the diaspora. Like I told you all before, there's going to come a time in the future, you know, I'm unwilling, where I'm going to start putting up funds for independent black films, because art is something that's near and dear to me. Art being actual drawing, art being music creation, art being, you know, film and you know, etc. And so there's a time when I'm going to start doing that. And I don't want to have folks putting together fly and dope films that shows positive, you know, African being, and you trying to get into Hollywood. No, we're trying to get these films played throughout the Caribbean, played in our own black theaters, wherever they may be. You know, the UK, the continent. I mean, do you know how many people we have on the continent? You know, like that's where we got to start branching out and doing the work, you know, out there. Daily affirmation by Pauline asks KW Don 7 to please explain his statement. Ogun says to me 100. The Revolutionary Matron says we need to organize ourselves and create our world. Entertainers know the power of the image. Kevin Carre 42 says it's depressing and hard when many of your own people want to work with the enemy. So I hadn't seen your comment until I said that just now. You know, until after I said what I said a second ago. Like, that's our problem. And when you listen to Gunnar DeSeuss, when I did the screening of his show, and by the way, the Discord wasn't a perfect place to screen it for a number of reasons. If you reach out to him on Discord, his Discord handle, let me see if I could type it, is Aiti Toma, right? You DM him on Discord. Join the Discord. The link is pinned at the top of the chat. It's also down in the description. Join the Discord and DM him. Send him your email, and he will share the film with you, so that you can watch it from his Google Drive, right? And you can take it in firsthand yourself. Okay, but if you listen to him during the Q&A after the screening of the film, you know, it sounds, you know, he sounds almost dejected. And so now he's in a place where he's just writing. And I hope that this time writing will get him to create something real fly in the future that I personally will help put money up to produce. You know? We got to start really doing work. That's one of the things the Solution Summit talked about today. We've been talking about a lot of stuff. We've been talking about a lot of stuff. We've been talking about a lot of stuff. It's time for us to really do this work. The Revolutionary Matron says sound check. Is my sound coming through, Paulie? Is my sound coming through, Paulie? Or am I supposed to check the Discord sound? Let me know. For some reason, Discord is still on some BS. I don't know why. When you guys are on the Discord, you can hear me broadcasting through the Discord, right? I don't know why it's carrying on like that. Right, but that's the thing. So it's a shame that brother passed away. You know, one of the things I always think about when those things happen, that brother died alone. You know, that's not the best way to go out. You know, that brother probably was planning for another day, so he probably never said goodbye to his folks and stuff like that. So, you know, all that kind of stuff is pretty messed up for me, you know. It's pretty messed up for me. So it seems like my mic is working on the Discord. I don't know why. Oh, I know why. Okay, hold on. I'll fix it right now. All right.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, yeah, because I saw something when you were speaking. Yeah. You had the earphone muted and the mic muted.
Oh, okay. Okay. So now you can speak. So Matron, if you want to hop back on, you can hop on. Kare, while you're here, what's your take on Michael K. Williams' death?
I don't know much about him. I've never really heard about his death. I don't pay attention to any actors and actresses. I'm just worried about blocking prominent.
I feel you. I feel you on that.
But
there was something I want to tell you about the first prompt. The guy's name was Silverstein, and when the World Trade Center went down, he was fighting for like a couple of months with the insurance company. They were saying that it was, you know, it was one incident, but he was saying it was 2 buildings, and they kept fighting. People were like, "Hey, you know, we
about money."
Right. Right, it was Silverstein. That was the guy who owned the buildings, right? And
remember this too. After those 2 World Trade Center fell, remember at 5 o'clock on the BBC and live, the building behind that was way behind just fell too out of nowhere.
Yeah. I talked about that earlier. Yeah, that building just fell for no reason.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I'm done. Continue.
Yeah, and also, did you remember there was a fight between the cops and the firefighters? Remember they found gold and they were fighting, but they were saying, oh, the firefighters didn't have access to do this, and the cops didn't. Remember they were fighting over the gold. Remember that?
Oh yeah, I vaguely remember that. Yeah, you see, that's the thing with history. Over time, you'll forget the details of some stuff. But there was a lot of, they say that Kevin Carey 42 is echoing. Is Kevin Carey still echoing now? Can you guys?
Let me mute something. Hold on. Let me see something.
Well, it's not echoing to me, so it has to be something in the transmission. So I'm asking the chat room now. Is Kevin Carey still echoing right now when he's speaking?
Testing.
Yeah. So I mean, it sounds good on my end. I'm just waiting because there's a lag between when I speak and when they hear me. So I'm just waiting to get feedback from them. Is the matron on with us? Yeah, the matron is on. Matron, you have any words for either of these two prompts?
Well, thank you for having me. Greetings, everyone. If I didn't greet you in the chat, I greet you now, and I welcome your presence. Thank you for hanging out with us tonight for Shoot the Breeze. It's been an extended and awesome KWAZ day. The only thing I have to say is I have that same sentiment. Like, entertainers know the power of image, and an actor that agrees to promote and prefers to inject a certain narrative into their work is not and does not have our overall best interest, because it's anti-creation, kind of sort of along the same lines of what Ogun said. It takes a man and a woman to make a family. If you put 1,000 men in one place on one planet and 1,000 women on another planet, those planets will die out in a generation, because once all the people there die, there's nothing, right? So I think that it's really unhealthy for us to have, even though he has a good body of work and things like that, the thing that I never really liked about the characters that he played was that all of them, even in Lovecraft, right, had this other leaning. And it's like, why is this even here,
Yeah, in Lovecraft especially, it didn't really add anything to the story except some bullshit. Like, even the character Omar, the only thing I think that really added was like a shock value. It was like, oh, okay, I guess this is what they do in here, but it didn't really add anything. And I was always disappointed with his choices there. And I guess what you guys are saying, which is true too, he was kind of a bit of a Trojan horse for the queer imagery being transmitted to our people. Because if you could transmit a street dude robbing drug dealers but still laying up with dudes, right? Who are you doing that for, really? Right? Who are you trying to turn out, so to speak,
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Now, the other part of that in regards to his situation is the mental health crises that we're facing. It really is a shame, and it is hurtful that so many people feel so very alone. They haven't created these parallel communities where it's like, okay, listen, I live alone, you live alone, we go to the grocery store and we come back home, or we go to our jobs and we come back home. We can be, quote unquote, alone together. I don't know which artist came up with that song, but we can be alone together, or we can make these spaces online where we can be together, where you're not alone and you really have people that genuinely want to care, provided you're an authentic person. Now for all these, like empty people that, like I remember seeing a lot of people do things like go to the grocery store in almost negligees because they wanted attention. So they almost naked, they got on like some booty shorts and a halter top and a mask. And it's like, who are you doing that for? Why are you trying to get this attention? So I think that with social media, right, has come a level of perceived connection that the lockdowns make people think they no longer have. But for me, it's really been an opportunity to really cultivate and grow and connect with authentic people that I probably would have never connected with, because I I try really hard to fight the menticide and the assault on my mindset, because I don't watch a lot of those shows that Daily Affirmations by Pauline talked about. Like, I don't do reality TV shows. I don't do a lot of junk TV, you know? So we have to reach out to each other, and we have to decide to, as Harsh Reality Podcast often says, turn off the TV. Just turn it off. Like in my Teddy Pendergrass voice, turn it off.
Yeah, that dude knew how to make some angry love songs, didn't he? God damn. But yeah, I agree. You know, a long time ago when I used to go out to clubs and all that kind of stuff, I had noticed something very interesting, man. It's particularly from women too. I had noticed that a lot of women will gladly go home alone. Like it was like almost like a badge of honor. And let's be clear, I like being to myself too. You could ask my family. I like being to myself. But I know that I have ways to kind of connect with people and to boost and build me up when I need it. You know, just like I talk about all the time, I listen to all these shows. Anytime something new drops, I'm there in the chat room listening to all the shows on KWAZ Radio and other shows too. And I'm a big documentary type guy, and I like to hang out with musicians and, you know, et cetera, et cetera. And so I have that kind of that way to connect with real people. But a lot of our people, and this is why I don't mess with Neely Fuller, a lot of our people are afraid to connect with other folks in our community. We have this thing where, you know, Neely Fuller pushes this idea of you don't have a reason to be around each other, don't be around each other. I kind of get some of that sentiment, but ultimately, what we really supposed to be doing is out here talking and supporting and building up the self-esteem of everybody, especially these youth. We have to be the ones to take them and build them up. And the great thing about that is while you do it, and I think Daily Affirmation by Pauline would agree, while you're doing that, you also build yourself up too. You also boost up your own self-esteem. Just knowing that you help someone through something does something for you too. And I think we got to start engaging each other more too. I think we got to start getting used to shooting a text, giving a phone call. You know, if you want to talk to me on Discord, now sometimes I won't answer because I'm busy doing something else. But when I have a chance, I usually shoot back a message or something and we talk. Like I talk to Agoon that way on Discord. There's always, you know, I can be that person if you need it. Shoot me an idea, something you're going through. What do you think you need to get? You know, what do you think you need to get done to get out of it, etc. As a matter of fact, the matron and I and the Pro-Black Perspective were talking about it, about show ideas that we should try cultivate on KWAZ Radio. And one of these show ideas was really like a mental health type show. And when Michael K. Williams died, I said, damn, we really do need a mental health show with a professional of some sort, right? As well as others if need be, who folks would just call in, you know, similarly to how folks call into the Learning Curve podcast with the Revolutionary Matron and just kind of unburden themselves, especially when it comes to this consciousness thing. This consciousness thing is heavy. This is heavy. Like when you sit down here as a conscious person and you know to yourself, you see all these folks following the Mohammedan religion, and you know Muhammad was a dude out here marrying 8-year-olds and all that kind of stuff, and they're just happily going along with this stuff. That shit is heavy to me. When I see people following Christianity, and I know the history of Christianity, I know the tool it was for our downfall and subjugation, that shit is heavy to me. And so, especially in this conscious thing, we need to have an outlet for folks to be able to connect to and really unburden themselves, you know, really unburden themselves, man. Kara, you have anything else out here?
Yeah, I want to say something you said earlier about the dudes that's suicidal. And we spoke about this all the time on the show. It's like when you look in the eyes of these dudes that hang on the street corner, you got the people that's always going to church, people that's always voting for these two parties. You look in their eyes, it's like they have no soul left. It's like it's been ripped away. And I kind of understand it. It starts when you're in school. Because remember, we all went. I don't know if you went to school here in New York, but I was lucky my first few years coming that I had black teachers.
Right.
Because after 6th grade, it was hell from there, man, dealing with these non-black teachers, you know, the white teachers, and especially a lot of the Asian teachers. They had a disdain for a lot of the black kids when I went to these schools. And on top of that, back then it was like the height of the crack era, so a lot of these kids didn't have any parents.
Right.
They were dealing with a lot of abuse at home and a lot of abuse in the schools, and then in between, you're dealing with a lot of abuse with the bullies in the streets.
Right. Right.
So, and the other thing that you see is people always say, "Oh, you should forget the past." Sometimes it's hard because you hold on to a lot of that anger.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, it's hard to, and then sometimes that anger will, like you see a lot of domestic violence, it will explode on the spouses.
Yeah.
When the spouse say the wrong thing,
Absolutely.
the trigger words.
Absolutely.
Like, okay, wait, before you go on, I don't know if you noticed this singer named Bjork.
Yeah.
Do you remember that video? She was like looking all stressed out, and you know she was going from country to country, and after a while she just snapped and started beating this white woman's ass. This reporter.
No, I don't remember that. But okay.
Yeah, that woman just snapped after a while. She just had enough. And remember also, even there's another white girl, Britney Spears. Remember after a while she just snapped in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
It's just I don't know what to say. I'm not a psychologist, not a professional, but it's just from my observation and experiences. But I digress. To you, Revolutionary Matron.
I was going to say 2, maybe 3 things. So the first thing was about the domestic violence thing. Like, that also spills out on children. I know so many children that live in volatile households, right? And they present with other problems, so they wind up in the system because their parents are dealing with other stressors, like they have to work 2 and 3 jobs or 4 jobs, 4 part-time jobs to try to provide for them. And then they come home and they've been dealing with their bullshit boss. They've been dealing with the bullshit people that they had to deal with to push through the day to try to put food on the table, keep the lights on, and keep a roof over their head. And it could be something simple that the child is going through, just processing through childhood. And the parent snaps complete and totally off on them, you know, and then that child is manifesting other behaviors in school because, you know, this is supposed to be a safe space. And then they wind up totally railroaded into a mental health system that they don't even belong in. Okay, but nobody is really listening to their root causes. That was the first thing. The second thing I wanted to address was when he was talking about, excuse me, I lost my train. My train is gone. Wait a second. He was talking about the fact that, as African people, right, as kids, we deal with all of these other stressors and we have all these other triggers. Like, white folks have been white folks, okay? They've been locking up they ill in rooms. They've been putting them away in institutions. That's not what we do to our people. And I feel, you know, I guess intellectually intrigued by the fact that these things are happening to them, you know, especially when they reach into certain areas, because from what I understand, Britney was like a Disney kid, and that whole process of Hollywood and all the different things. But it's like, I care more about the fact that this is impacting our people now on an intimate level, not just because the consciousness is raised, because it feels like they really have an opportunity to have an outlet for it. And lastly, we just need to be here for each other. And I think that show is very needed and necessary, you know, something that we can do just to acknowledge the fact that we're here for one another.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, I was thinking while Kare and the matron was speaking that there's this saying that hurt people, but what we have to also understand too is when hurt people don't want to hurt people, you know who they hurt? They hurt themselves. You know what I'm saying? They hurt themselves. So hurt people hurt people. That's what you see out here on the streets and all that kind of stuff, right? But when you see this drug type thing, this kind of drug overdose type stuff, that's hurt people hurting themselves as opposed to hurting others. And it, you know, it's a shame. And it's a thing that if we don't address, we're going to be twice the loser for it. Again, because of our predicament, there's certain things that we can't just sit idly by and allow to happen, right? We can't sit by and allow our folks to terrorize our own communities. We don't have the luxury for that, right? We can't sit by and allow our folks to go off the deep end because we don't have the luxury for that. We have to help our people, help them early, help them quickly, help them often. The matron said something interesting. Now, maybe in America, black folks don't hide away they're ill, but in the Caribbean and Africa, I know black folks hide away they're ill all the time. Because there was a time I could remember where it was almost like a shame thing. Because again, and I kind of get why it's kind of a shame thing, to be honest. And I know that's kind of harsh, but a lot of people look at it like this. A lot of people say, hey, if I'm out here surviving it, why aren't you out here surviving it? I didn't lose my mind. How you lost your mind? You know, and so a lot of people...
And that's the problem right there.
And that's the problem right there, too. Kari, speak on it.
No, it's that, to me, that's just plain arrogance. For you to see someone, like a good example is, you know, I got this job, I maintain this job, you can't get a job. You don't know what people are going through.
Right.
Or you should, especially here in New York City, oh, you should have your own place. You should have, they don't look at the bigger picture in life.
Right.
You know,
right.
And then people will take that projection and internalize it and like, yo, and do stuff that they will never usually do. And it costs them even more in the mental health.
Yeah.
Because they get more angry when they fail.
Yes.
And they want to lash out more on that person.
Yes. I had to learn early on. That I have my own schedule. That's the thing that's really killing us in the black community heavily too. I had to learn early on, don't compare me to not a goddamn soul. I am me. I will do it. If I'm going to do it, I'll do it in my time. If I ain't going to do it, I just ain't going to do it. But I'm not killing up myself, right? Trying to keep up with nobody. You know, and that's something for the youth. If there's any youth listening to this, don't you worry about who did what and when. You on your schedule. You do your thing on your time. Don't let no one pressure you to do nothing, like Michael K. Williams doing all these gay shit. Don't let no one pressure you to do nothing just for $1. You do things on your time, your schedule, and you be comfortable with your decision. Be comfortable with your life. What Kare said just now is heavy hitting.
Also, can I add a very important quote from a song, Tosh?
Yeah.
Remember, he says, I'm not here to live up to your expectation, and neither are you here to live up to mine.
Yeah. Right? That's a great song. I listen to that song on a weekly basis. Right? Equal rights and justice. Right? In the chat room, Daily Affirmations by Pauline just said, true. It is hidden and shameful, just like AIDS is hidden because of the shame in some islands where in the States it's mostly normalized. Hey, you could be positive here. You could be so positive, so HIV and AIDS positive here that folks don't even remember it. Like I watched Magic Johnson do something the other day. It was his birthday or something. And I had to remind myself that this dude has HIV. This white boy, Charlie Sheen. No one talks about the fact that he has HIV. That just came and went, and it didn't make much of an impact. It didn't make much of a splash. Back in my hometown, that'd be a big thing. You know? Ogun says, I don't own a TV. That's cool. Like I tell people, too. and you guys have heard me say this before, if you own a TV, that's cool. If you don't own a TV, that's cool. It's like saying, well, I don't own a hammer. Well, a hammer could be used to build a mansion, right? Is Coach Pete still here? Coach Pete will tell you. A hammer could be used to help build a mansion, or it could be used to bust someone's head open. It's how you use the tool. You know, even that stuff. I remember in the early 2000s, people used to be beating their chest like, well, you know, I don't own a television. I don't watch a TV. You know, but you're out here doing lines of cocaine or some shit like that. Like, what's the point? I prefer you watch TV if you're gonna be doing lines of cocaine. You know what I mean? So I get it, but it's how you use the tools. Like, for example, I plan to, after I do this show tonight, I noticed Netflix has a new show on Muhammad Ali and Malcolm X. I plan to check it out. You know, it's how you use the tool. It's what you watch, you know? And that's important to teach the kids that too, is what you watch. It's not if you watch it. You know what I mean? Anyway, that's that prompt. I think we did a good discussion on that prompt. If you guys, yeah.
Before you go on, there's one more thing from the first prompt that you mentioned about the Jewish people. Do you also remember there was a rumor that says all of them were told not to come to work that day?
Right. Yeah, there was all those rumors, and I, you know, it's funny. If I had thought about it, I would have tried to pull this stuff up before coming on. But today was a busy day. But yeah, that's stuff that I said that the Israelis were brought in for questioning because they were celebrating over. I think it was in New Jersey or some part of New York, maybe. But that happened.
It was New Jersey.
It was New Jersey, right?
Yeah, and also, if you remember that night, they were playing this film of all of Arabs that were celebrating, but it was verified that video was in the 1990s Gulf War.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So, so, you know, don't be surprised. And you know, I tried to get this across several weeks back when Dorico Cooper was in the chat, and he was talking about the nanoparticles and all that kind of stuff. You know, a lot of our people in particular, have been reared to think that a person is crazy if they have an alternative opinion or alternative view, right? So they brush them off. But we got to get off of that. There's something, now if someone's out here talking about Yaqub on the island of Patmos and all that old shit, I'm cool on that. But if you're out here showing video evidence and newspaper evidence of these things and connecting the dots, no, I'm intrigued by that. I want to hear more. You know what I mean? And so Mr. Untouchable is here saying, what's up to Cuckoo, listening in but working. I appreciate that. Make sure you hit the like button if you're here. That's for all of you who are here today, because I know there's some folks who'll be listening but don't be saying nothing. We just had what's the sister name, Tito District, who came out the bushes the other day and said, yeah, I'd be in the bushes listening, but tonight I decided to say something. So, you know, always make yourself known, man. That you know, that just makes the conversation that much better. But yeah, we gotta start being critical thinkers, and most importantly, just to put a bow on the whole 9/11 talk, put nothing past these people. Put nothing past them, right? These guys go through great lengths to do some bullshit, right? Like I remember, like Castro and them was talking about how like they had put like an explosive in a cigar or some shit like that, right? On a cigar box or something. Like that's what these guys do. This is their get down. They're bound to do anything. If you remember, who was it? I think it was Kwame Nkrumah, wasn't it? Who at the end of their life was like pretty paranoid. They thought their food was being poisoned and they wouldn't eat sometimes and stuff like that. Like we don't put anything past these folks. Folks who understand, they know. you guys who question that stuff, you guys got to get your understanding up so that you could know too. Don't put anything past these guys, man. I remember reading an article. There was some prominent white boy somewhere, I can't remember where and who, but they sent him a letter or something that had like palladium in it, some kind of radioactive element. That was like the size of a grain of rice, and he didn't know, and he got radioactive poisoning and died horribly. I mean, this is what they do. These guys have in the 70s have shown off a gun that they have that can induce a heart attack. The heart attack gun. You guys have heard of that before, right?
Yeah, that's that squid they put in, this little squid, and when you shoot you with it, it becomes denatured in your body. But before when it kills you, it just becomes denatured and just disappears. No trace of it.
Mm-hmm.
No trace. Right?
Mm-hmm.
They have something that's a meat bullet. I don't know if you guys know that too. There's a meat bullet, a frozen meat bullet. They shoot you with that stuff in your head. It's meat, so you won't be, once it defrosts, thaws out, you can't even tell that shit from nothing else inside the brain. So these guys have all kind of ways to do stuff, man. Believe the stuff that you hear sometimes, okay? Make sure
they have thousands of years of doing this kind of stuff to each other, and they're doing it to us now.
Of course. Right? So let me post the next prompt. Again, I want to thank all you guys for being here tonight. I want to thank you guys for being here tonight. Daily Affirmation by Pauline just said something that's interesting too. She says, like, the rumor that a cancer needle was putting a gift of new shoes to Bob Marley. Like, I won't put nothing past these guys. Like I told you all recently.
And his doctor was a Nazi.
His doctor was a Nazi. They took him to a German doctor who was a Nazi, which makes no goddamn sense. And this is because we don't believe that these folks are evil.
Coke, first I want to shout out Mr. Untouchable. Peace, brother. It's good to see you here, and thank you for always pulling through for some of our podcasts and pulling for me when I go out and visit other places. You know what I'm talking about. But I wanted to add that, when we talk about our mental health issues, right? And the fact that to be relatively conscious, you don't even have to be all the way fully woke conscious with all the historical facts and data, because I'm still learning, right? Is to be, as James Baldwin said, as you eloquently quoted earlier, in a constant state of rage. And when we talk about having mental health services and places where we can purge, I just feel like every African person deserves a rage room, POW pay, and an opportunity to just vent. Because when you think about the breeding farms, when you think about how they took out our leaders, when you think about how they set up situations and institutions in our community to assassinate us, when you think about the history of what they did to our women, the history of what they did to our men, the things they're doing to the men on the continent right now, and the fact that all of these different things are happening and have happened, like we have it documented. When somebody comes up with something new, it's like, don't put it past them. As a matter of fact, assume and operate like that is the truth, because it is better to be careful than to be sorry.
Better to be careful than be sorry. I love it. I love it. So the next prompt, I pasted into the chat. It says, it's disturbing, disheartening, and disappointing to see and hear so many young people from the diaspora killing each other and harming innocent children. What are your thoughts? I'm going to throw that to you guys in a second. Let's pause here for a quick station ID. I'll be back on the other side.
You are listening to the Bitter Medicine Podcast on KWAZ Radio.
This is D Webb with the Harsh Reality Podcast, asking you to tune in where we tackle the news of the day that affects our community, only on KWAZ Radio.
Peace, family. This is Oni, inviting you to listen to the pro-black perspective, where black problems are addressed with black solutions.
Greetings, fam. Tune in to The Learning Curve with me, the revolutionary matron on KWAZ Radio. Have you ever considered joining KWAZ Radio? Each of our hosts shares their unique perspective with you. You might have a perspective that needs to be shared. If that's true, hit us up at kwaz.radio@gmail.com. What are you gonna do? What you gonna do?
You are listening to the Bitter Medicine Podcast on KWAZ Radio.
Yes, indeed. You guys hold on one more second again. In the meantime, Kevin Carre, Revolutionary Matron, you guys give your opinions on the prompt.
I digress to Revolutionary Matron.
Okay, great. See, one of the things that we have to remember is that these things are sad. These things are disheartening and they are disappointing. But this is a multi-generational failure because these children are acting out because they don't have constructive activities to do. They're not being given direction. Their elders, their parents, their grandparents have either checked out, are on some form of escapism, or are not minding the children. They have turned them over to a system to raise them, entertain them, which is really just another manifestation of that public school to prison pipeline. So yes, this is sad, and yes, this is a problem, but that's where we're supposed to be able to come together and step in and give them something to do. These teachers don't care about them. Teachers didn't care about children 30 years ago when I was processing through school, because black and white teachers told me that they had theirs and I better get mad. And the white teachers were like, as a matter of fact, I hate you because you're intelligent. I had I had mentally disabled, I'll say the proper word, I had mentally disabled white teachers, or white teachers that had disabilities that were teaching me because I grew up poor and in a black neighborhood, and she was able to go and get on and get a good job. And once she got her quote unquote good job at the district, right, this is a transference of wealth, so she was able to get a job there, and she probably retired and all of that stuff. But she wrought terror on the intelligent black children, of which I was one. And so we have to look at the fact that what are we building? Because you're right, it is disheartening, disturbing, disappointing. It is a damn shame. But what are we doing? Because we sit there and we look at this problem and we lament about this problem, and we say things like trigger words, like the catchphrases that Eurasians have given us to say, like black on black crime and inner city crime and urban problems and all this other stuff. And that's kind of sort of true, but that's by design. Are we educating and equipping our children, their parents and their grandparents about the things that are actually necessary? And then we have to take that next step. That next step is for us to make the sacrifice and to really literally put ourselves and our resources out there to make a different reality, because they closed the community centers. They took that money away and they developed Riverside, and they developed riverfronts, and they developed neighborhoods when they displaced crackheads in my city and different things like that. It could be the arts district that they took that money away from the community center and reallocated it for their development as they were prepared to gentrify neighborhoods 25 years ago. And now, since I lost, the community centers were lost to my generation, right? And I didn't get the additional job training, and I had to figure it out and things like that. The next generation that's behind me, like, they don't know anything, right? And so if we don't step in, they're not going to have anything.
Absolutely. KW Dawn 7 says, I have heard those Bob Marley rumors for years. We forget that Peter Tosh was killed under questionable circumstances. Yeah, someone someone sent that dude to kill Peter Tosh too. He said Peter Tosh was killed under questionable circumstances. He told the Uish to kick rocks when they wanted him to perform in Israel. He refused because they support the South African crime settler. Yeah, that's why he. Rhodesia, right? Peter Tosh was killed. For those who don't know, Peter Tosh used to help out a brother in Jamaica, and the brother, you know, whenever the brother had hard times, he would ask Tosh for a hand, and Tosh would give him a little hand here and there. And then at some point, the brother was like, well, I need somewhere to stay. And Tosh gave him lodgings in his house, only for that same brother to tie up some of his family. I think Peter Tosh Jr., I think his mother was tied up too. And when Tosh came home, Tosh was shot in the head and killed. Clearly someone saw that youth and said, well, you have all this trouble with money and all that stuff. Then they threw him a couple dollars. So these guys are killed, and like Bob Marley said, how long shall we stand aside and look? We got to start getting serious about taking care of our people and protecting them. But for this prompt, it's disturbing, disheartening, and disappointing to see and hear so many young people from the diaspora killing each other and harming innocent children. This is why I'm so hard on the streets. I get why you're there. I get there's an economic vacuum. There's an economic vacuum, however, that affects all of us. All of us ain't out here killing innocent people and terrorizing the neighborhood. There is we talked about this earlier today on the Solution Summit. There was a point, and you guys will hear it when you listen to the playback. There was a point where someone was talking about, I think it was Magi Commander, etc., was talking about holding people accountable. And someone else was kind of not in agreement with that. But the reality of it is, we do have to hold people accountable. We can't let folks be out here terrorizing our own communities without some action on our part. We just waiting for white folks to come through and lock up these criminals. What incentive do they have for getting for rounding up these folks who are out here hurting young people and killing each other? There's no incentive there. They like that shit. When time comes after you've dropped a couple of people, they'll come and pick you up. After you've gone and fucked around and dropped a white person, they'll come and definitely pick you up then. But we have to hold them accountable. We have to have punishment and reward systems. And one of my suggestions was that a part of the problem is we don't have a race consciousness that we instill in our youth from small. We tend to want to bring up our kids as happy-go-lucky and, you just as good as them and all that old dumb shit. But we got to really create a race consciousness in each other from a young age, so that when you step out of the confines of the race, within yourself, you're out of bounds and you need to step back in line, right? When you step out of bounds, when you're when you're thinking to kill another young man or to harm a young black woman, right? Your race consciousness is supposed to kick in and say, now you done fucked up. Right? And pull you back square and pull you back where you're supposed to be. But we're not trying to cultivate that. We're on this thing of trying to let folks just be. Just do you and just say, well, you're not a part of my group. No, that's too dangerous. That's too dangerous to let that go on. Because the thing about it is this. While you bullshit and talking about, well, they ain't a part of my group, that person may come and take you out because they were left unchecked. You see? We gotta start tightening up the hatches on this machine, on this ship. Daily affirmation by Pauline says, my husband coaches and plays ball weekly with youth, mentors them and gives them quote unquote island, gives tough quote unquote island, I guess love, a lot. Each person has to do something to help curb this. Absolutely. Absolutely. Hey, let me tell y'all something. A lot of these youth out here on the bullshit, their mama and them was on bullshit. Or their mama and them just wash their hands and says, well, I can't control you. You go out there and do what you want to do. And I take exception to that. So you send this little terrorist out here where I may stumble across them, Kevin Carrera, or the matron, or one of you in the chat may stumble across this little asshole you raised that you allowed to get out of hand. Because that's the other thing too. We gotta stop with this narrative that all the folks out here doing the dumb shit is from these economically deprived. That's not true. That's not completely true. There's a lot of folks out here who just want some kind of action. A lot of youth. They just want some kind of action and they put themselves out there. Who was I watching recently? I was watching, another Vlad interview. There's this black woman. I'm not familiar with her. I forgot her name now, but apparently she's notorious in the streets for pulling guns on folks and stuff like that. If you guys know, it's a recent interview. If you know who I'm talking about, post a name in the chat, right? And she tells you straight up, she was like, I just wanted to be out there on some bullshit. I was bored. This is literally what you'll hear some of these street dudes talking about. Dude, I was bored and that shit was exciting.
Coco?
Yeah.
The other term that what I'm hearing that people don't talk about when you say that, it's not so much they're bored, they're looking for clout.
Right. Right.
You know, like I said, I go hard on these Asians. Like this Chinese boy, China Mac, you know, you have all these street dudes hanging around this one Asian dude and he's telling them what to do in their own neighborhood.
Yeah. It's weak. We gotta be we just have to be honest about that. It's weak. Right? We gotta start addressing these things. Matron, you got something you want to say?
Yeah, you know, that goes back to that racial pride. There could be no one coming into our community and telling us what to do or dictating rules or watching these things happen. And when you talk about these people that release these little tyrants or terrorists into the community, the thing about it is this, right? We don't even process that we are paying the economic cost for these terrorists to be set free in our communities, because when they do some bullshit and the cops blow them away, and I'm not advocating a militarized police force.
Of course.
I'm just saying, you know, you done release the terrorists into the community, right? Something happens, and whether it was a bad traffic cop or they really was into something, or it's an overhyped cop or whatever, right? The cop does what they do as officers, and then they get this payout of millions of dollars. Well, we, the community, have paid her to raise a terrorist, and she's sitting there talking about what her baby did and didn't do, and who her baby was and wasn't, knowing that she has not equipped that child to exist in the world.
Right.
Like, that's a whole set of problems. Like, it's a whole messed up situation, because we're paying the cost 2 and 3 times. We're paying the emotional cost, right? Mm-hmm. We're paying the psychological cost, mm-hmm. and we're paying the economic cost.
Yeah, man. Preach. You know, there's too much cost associated with this bullshit. Just because you decided to give up and let this little bastard run around here terrorizing people, shooting folks, raping folks. Come on, man. Daily affirmation by Pauline says, I agree. Kids from stable homes. Yeah, kids from stable homes do this shit all the time. I saw this even when I was in my hometowns. This shit, you'll be surprised the people and the houses that some of these folks come from. And out here on the blocks, kicking it. Bullshit. Right? Because the house is too strict, or they trying to get some clout to get with some, you know, get some girls or some shit like that. A lot of folks in this game out here on some bullshit. All these folks out here ain't economically deprived and didn't come from a house, at least, you know, it mightn't have been a rich home, but mom and them tried to put food on the table every day. It wasn't much, but it was something. That's on these kids out here. We got to stop telling that lie to ourselves too. You know, and by the way, the chick I was talking about who was on the recent Vlad interview is a black chick named LaChat. Now, I've never heard of LaChat in my life, but LaChat was out here telling people straight up. I wasn't, like, I just wanted to, you know, I was bored. I just wanted to have fun. Which goes back to something that Charleston White dude, who I'm not big on, but I have to take what he said, right? He said, like, you know, him and his friends, he told one of his friends to shoot a dude, the dude shot this dude, killed him, and they ran off giggling. A lot of the stuff that you see going out here in the streets, mark my words when I tell you, a lot of that shit is just on some shits and giggles type stuff. When nighttime come, you don't see these street dudes sleeping on no street. You don't see a bunch of them sleeping in a park and all that kind of stuff where they hang out. They go home somewhere. So we got to stop being honest. And a part of this not wanting to hold people accountable is because that involves some work too. So it's just easier to say, well, you know, they're not, you know, I don't fuck with them. Right? So let them do what they do over there. But over there sometimes becomes over here. You got to nip that type of dumb shit in the bud. Right? In the chat, does anyone else have anything to add to this prompt? Sometimes I notice y'all wait till I go to the next prompt, and then there's all kind of, you know, comments from a previous prompt. And does anyone else have anything else to add to this prompt? Kare, do you want to add anything else to this prompt?
All I gotta say is, if we want to correct our neighborhood, we gotta say punishment from the outsiders be damned. This is our community. We gotta take it back. We can't allow outsiders to run our shit. We just gotta take that shit back at some point. And that point is now. But I digress.
Right. Matron, do you have a last word on this prompt?
Now we just got to stop being scared.
Yeah.
Okay. You know, one of the things that has happened is we have cowered in the face of, I don't know, social change, economic change. We are cowering. We told our kids to go get a good job and, you know, take on this debt to go to school. Nothing wrong with that. But we have told them to run away from the problem instead of standing their ground and dealing with it. And as a community, we have decided to run away from our problems, or worse yet, because we can't afford to run away, bury our heads in the sand. And we need to stop it.
Absolutely.
I want to add this too. Speaking of that with the fear, like the other day, you know, I saw some cops doing some bad things to people, so I told the cop to go fuck himself. And you know what people tell me? Oh, you shouldn't do that. I'm like, yo, I have my First Amendment rights. I can record these bastards and I can cuss them out, and there's nothing the hell they can do. Those cops, they knew what I was talking about, but that's why they have the community so fearful, because a lot of people don't know their rights.
Yeah, and when you add these things together, the community is in fear of the cops. You're in fear of the guys committing the egregious acts in the neighborhood. What kind of community are you living in? If you fear the police, you don't want to tell the cops who did the dumb shit around the block, you fear them guys too. Well, I mean, how much fear can you live under? How much fear can you live under and expect to be, you know, in some type of productive type of life, some type of productive community? It just doesn't make sense. We don't do things that add up. In mathematics, when I was growing up doing math, they always told you to check your work. Make sure everything adds up. And we don't do that. We talk a lot of dumb shit about, well, you know, well, it's the economics, and so they have to do, they got to do bullshit. Bullshit. a goddamn monkey wrench or a hammer or something and go do some plumbing. Go do some carpentry. Go apprentice with somebody. Right? Go and learn a skill. We have all these ways to learn how to do something. Go become an independent filmmaker. Go become, I sat in after the Urzuli, the screening of The Raging Elephant, and I listened to Magi, Kevin Carre, and Gunner talk about stuff that I didn't understand, these cameras and all this kind of stuff. Go get yourself around people like that and go learn yourself something, right? Go learn the technology or whatever and go work on your craft out there. Stop with the excuses. Again, sitting here in America, particularly in New York, these guys ain't out here doing this bullshit because they hungry. They laying up with women and getting fed. They have their mama and them feeding them. These guys ain't hungry out here doing this shit. A lot of them doing it, like Kare said, for clout. A lot of them doing it because they bored. A lot of them doing it because they're immature in the mind and it shits and giggles for them. We got to come off of that stuff and start taking control of our community. Anyway, I digress. I'm going to put up the next prompt. This is the last one for the night. Again, I want to thank you guys for tuning in tonight. We had a long but awesome day of programming on KWAZ Radio. The matron did an excellent job on her show, The Learning Curve, today. And then she came back at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and did her regular show that she does every day at 6 p.m. So that was awesome as well. Ogun was there. I hopped on for a second. And now we're here shooting the breeze. I hope you guys are kicking back stress-free with a nice drink or something. Well, I guess I shouldn't say that, right? But whatever it is you need to cope, I hope you're sitting back and not being a slave to that thing you need to cope and just taking this all in and thinking through this discussion that we're having. I want to thank Daily Affirmations by Pauline for the prompts tonight. She was the one who provided all these prompts tonight. I appreciate you for that, right? The fourth and last prompt is if two vaccines didn't make people immune. So here we are with the vaccine talk. This is around the time when my views are going to drop, I bet. And YouTube is going to start messing with the stream. But if 2 vaccines didn't make people immune to COVID, thoughts on the booster shot? So I had this conversation with Tito District on the Discord yesterday. The reality of it is, and you heard us talk about this before when everyone from KWAZ was on the Discord, was on the Shoot the Breeze a couple weeks ago. You heard D-Web say it, you heard me say it as well. The reality of it is, this is not a vaccine. They're changing the terminology, and that's just what it is. I know M. Chaka's somewhere rolling his eyes, but that's just what it is. When I was a kid, Daily Affirmations by Pauline was a kid, Kevin Carre, the matron, etc. When we were kids, a vaccine was also known as immunization, meaning that you got immunity from whatever it is the shot was protecting against. And that's just the reality of it. I'm sure there's some of you out here who could remember having immunization cards at one time. The reality of it was, you got your shot. In some cases, you may have to have gotten another shot years later, right? But the reality is that this thing is not a vaccine because clearly it's not stopping you from getting it. As Daily Affirmation by Pauline told us a few weeks ago, she had COVID and she has been vaccinated since April. I was just talking to a brethren I know. He had COVID and he was vaccinated fully as well, right? It's clearly not giving you any immunity because you can still get it. The only thing it's doing, and this is what it really is, it's therapeutic. It's a therapeutic that minimizes the adverse effects of the virus. And the virus is real, by the way. Right? It minimizes the effect. And by the way, if you wear your mask and keep your distance, you'll be fine. Because what's happening to the vaccinated, a lot of vaccinated folks are kind of relaxing themselves. A good colleague of mine from work was in Italy a couple weeks ago, and he said that in Italy, because a lot of people are vaccinated, these guys are not wearing masks anymore. They've kind of relaxed themselves from social distancing, from wearing the mask, and that's why that COVID shit is going. Israel, I posted it on the Discord last weekend. Israel is talking about a fourth wave is coming when they have 80% of their adults vaccinated. And they're calling it war. They are straight up calling the shit war. Now, what does Israel mean by calling it war? That's something I'd like you guys to chew on, and you can post your comments on that. But the reality of it is, until they really get serious and they put in the time to really find a vaccine, you will be taking booster shots for a while. Right? KW Dawn just posted what I was just about to talk about. Right? Biden said his patience is wearing thin. Sounded like Stalin. The USA is moving to authoritarian, totalitarian rule. Yeah, Biden didn't really look good this week. Right? Not that he's ever looked good, period. But he really didn't look good this, and it didn't sound good as a black person hearing that kind of rhetoric. Right? We gotta be straight up and honest about what's going on. The virus is real. Don't let no one out here fool you that this virus ain't real. Don't let no one fool you that it doesn't have some harmful effects. There's a popular, I don't know if Daily Affirmation by Pauline saw this, or Mr. Untouchable saw this. There's a popular Bahamian comedian right now recovering. I saw a picture of him today after about a week or two of having this thing. He looks awful. He looks awful. He looks gaunt. He looks weak. He looks completely sickly. So the shit is real. But what I would say is work on your immunity, work on your immune system, make it strong. Right? Kevin Carre has posted the videos. The matron has talked about it on here before. Daily Affirmation by Pauline has talked about it as well. D Webb has talked about it. Take your vitamin D, C, and zinc. You know, get yourself together, social distance, wash your hands, wear your mask. Don't fall for that hype that masks have you breathing in CO2. That's not how that works. Masks are a semi-permeable membrane. As you breathe out CO2 into that mask, the high concentration of CO2 wants to disperse. It will cross the mask, and the CO2 levels will drop almost immediately, while oxygen will take its place until some type of equilibrium is hit. That's how diffusion and osmosis works. Okay? So you're not breathing back in no CO2 or no level like that. Wear your mask. Keep your distance, especially from me. Right? Text me and check in. Call me and check in. That's fine. Right? But keep your physical distance from each other. Right? And that's the deal. Daily Affirmation by Pauline says, yes, I saw him, and he looks awful. Yeah, shout out to Sawyer Boy. Right? Shout out to Sawyer Boy. That fella, funny enough, he did his first comedy special back home during the pandemic, which was a decent comedy special, by the way. And in the audience, you see people wearing masks and stuff like that. He wasn't wearing a mask, of course, because he's doing a special. And next thing you know, he had COVID. He looks horrible. I'm hoping the best for him to pull through. Dragon Tamer is here. That name is longer than that, but Dragon Tamer is here saying, good afternoon, sisters and brothers. I appreciate your live streams. I appreciate you coming through and checking us out. I really do. Right? Ogun says La Chat was on Project Pat album. She was famous for the song Chicken Head, 3-6 Mafia. Oh, that's where she's from? Oh, okay. Okay. I didn't know that. Thanks for that information. I appreciate that. Right? But she, you know, the chat was telling you she was just out there because she was bored. Right? Dragon Tamer says there's people knocking on people's door in my neighborhood promoting to get the shot. When I have encountered these people, I ask them to show me proof that they got their shot, and they never prove it. That's an excellent strategy. A lot of people who are telling you, so there's two sides to it. A lot of people who are telling you they're not taking the vaccination, they're taking the vaccination. A lot of people who are saying the opposite, they're doing the opposite. Right? KW Don 7 says people will be wishing for crotch grab to come back to office. Yeah, I think I saw Kare talking about that on Twitter earlier today or yesterday. Dragon Tamer says outside the grocery stores, there's Mexican Karens asking people if they've gotten the shot. This one time I replied, I will not get the shot, and they almost followed me to my car. You know? Yeah, they're getting real serious about this shot. And what doesn't make sense to me is if you go and get the shot, shouldn't you feel good about yourself? If another person doesn't get it and they die, I mean, it is what it is. But the problem with that is that even though you got the shot, you can still get the shit, and more importantly, or most importantly, you can still pass it on. And we just got to be honest about what's going on here. The therapeutic is cool if you know why it's a therapeutic. You know, and again, if you choose to take the shot, I'm not discouraging anyone. Go and take the shot if you want to take the shot. It's your choice. Just like it's other people's choice not to take it. I prefer to social distance, wear my mask, be hygienic, sanitize, and when they do come out with something definitively that will confer immunity to me from the virus, I'll gladly go and take the shot. But until that time, I'm not going to be forced and bullied to go take some bullshit that just minimizes the effects if you get it. Matron? Kari, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry, real quick. Speaking of it, the social distancing, did you see that video of all those Virginia students in that packed stadium for the football game about a week or two ago?
Yeah.
Like this thing was not even here. No one's wearing masks.
Yeah, and I have a big problem with that stuff. I don't know.
And on top of that, a couple of weeks ago, the bozo, our mayor, well, not my mayor, I never voted for the motherfucker, but he had those concerts. All them vaccinated people were there. Another super spreader event, and now they're complaining that this thing is spiking in New York. Whose fault is that? It's not the unvaccinated people. It's these people. It's the politicians' fault for opening up these goddamn cities and states. It's their fault.
Well, their excuse is they're trying to open up the economy and all that old shit. Okay, my problem is not with the vaxxed or the unvaxxed, to be honest with you. My problem is with the folks who are not taking the damn thing seriously. It's one thing to be vaxxed or unvaxxed. That's your personal choice. But are you wearing a mask? Like, I was walking through the street in my neighborhood. I saw all these black folks with no masks. And I'm saying to myself, nah, all of y'all didn't go to get no vaccination. I know better. Right? But folks thinks it's sweet out here. And so folks are just walking around, no mask. And this has been going on throughout the pandemic, by the way. I talked about this before. There's a big park across the street from me. I saw 70 dudes last summer hanging out in the park, close proximity, not a mask in sight. So my big issue with folks is folks who are not taking any precaution. They ain't getting vaccinated. They damn sure ain't wearing no mask. They ain't social distancing and the like. Those people are the problem, and that's why this shit is still going on the way it's going on. Matron, you have any comments?
I just want to say that yes, it is real. I completely agree with all of that. But one of my interesting observations, because I like to make anecdotal observations about the world I live in. They are opening up the economy, quote unquote, right? And they're trying to make sure it doesn't shut back down. In my state, schools are open. Teachers must be vaccinated with this thing. Government offices are closed. Police officers don't have to wear masks. Restaurants are delivery only.
Yeah. It don't add up. This stuff doesn't add up. All right. Is the matron still there?
Yeah, I'm still here. I'm still here. I was trying, because it doesn't add up. My cord came out. It doesn't add up that I can't go into several restaurants to eat, right? And I understand there's like a worker shortage because people are like, fuck that, I'm not going back to work. I get it. I'm not even mad at nobody for that perspective. But like mom and pop restaurants and stuff like that, all of the restaurants in my area are like carry out only or delivery only, no dine-in. But they've got this huge push of you can't come back to the school to work unless you're fully vaccinated. Children under 12 aren't even eligible to get the vaccination,
right?
But you want to put fully vaccinated adults in a room with unvaccinated children, and even if children don't get it as bad on a statistical basis as adults do, when kids get it, if they're the kid that gets it, it's horrible, okay? And then that makes them an asymptomatic spreader. So these children that have to go to school become super spreaders to their parents, grandparents, whoever else is in their household, or whomever else they come in contact with. Because, what's the practical part of them being able to actually keep their mask on, keep their social distance both away from each other and the teacher all day long? And you don't know what's going on in the other, because they have not minimized classroom sizes. So what's going on with the other 20 to 35 kids that's in the classroom with your child? And the schools are open. The government buildings are closed. You can't really get a court date. You can't go into a government building for a tour. You can't get an audience in person with an elected official. They still doing all this shit via Zoom. So why is there this push for this particular area to have, vaccinated people and unvaccinated children around one another? And when earlier we were talking about how Africa is like the youngest quote unquote continent in the world. And I think about the fact that they're saying that tertiary or PhD or, master level and above education is something that's impeding their ability to seek their profit motive on a global scale. And it's like, this really kind of sounds like take out the adults, alter their DNA, do this, that, like my whole conspiracy theory brain picks up, because once you separate the children from intelligent thought, they become slaves and unknowing slaves in this particular system. So it don't add up. None of this shit makes sense, and we got to get busy.
KW Dawn 7 is like a mind reader tonight, because he's posting the things I'm just about to touch on. KW Dawn 7 says that's their economy. Africans are not invested in it. Actually, Africans are dependent on these economies, and this is why, like the matron just said, we got to get to work. We are a dependent group. There's a lot of I took the train to get this root canal on Thursday. I took the train, one of the few times I've taken the train in New York here since the pandemic started. Probably maybe the third time, if not just the second, right? And I looked at all these black folks who are like construction workers and laborers of different sorts, and I could see on their face they really don't want to be in this shit. They don't want to be traveling through a train station with all these people on the train and all this type of stuff. But because we are dependent as a group on this economic system, we don't have our own, right? This is why we got to get to work. We have to start working on a way to feed our people. We have to have a way to at least be able to provide the basic needs, food, shelter, clothing, etc., to our people, right? This is how you could get away from, you know, this nonsense. Dragon Tamer says their push is that vaccinated people be shedding the chemicals and then they get unvaccinated sick. Daily affirmation by Pauline says in Florida, the governor bans masks in schools and say he will fine districts who go against this mandate. Yeah, that Florida thing, boy. That DeSantis, whew, good luck. Good luck. Dragon Tamer says, and when the unvaccinated get sick, it builds herd immunity double stronger, so it ruins their plan double time. A bunch of kids turned into mini Karens too. They're annoying as F. Ogun said, COVID is real. I lost my big brother to COVID 5 months ago. You see what I'm saying? I send my apologies to you. This conversation might be triggering to you, and I apologize if it is. Right? But I did say COVID is real. I've known people I used to work with who died. And in fact, there's this white boy, I didn't know him, but he was young, like 30 or something like that, working in the philosophy department where I am, you know, on the campus where I am. He was one of the first people I heard who died. You know, this shit is real. And the least we can do, each of us, is to practice, you know, the basic safety precautions that make sense. Wear your mask and don't do this shit. Man, I was in a grocery store and I wanted to scream on a couple of older black women. They in the store. No, I was in a pharmacy actually. They're in the pharmacy and this lady is wearing a mask and talking, and the mask is like almost down below her upper lip. Like, what are you doing? That's not wearing the mask.
Did you hear the Prime Minister of Bahamas, the woman, I forget her name, but she just reminds me of a stern grandmother. And she says, no, you wear the mask at the bridge of your nose to your chin. And she was on her presentation to the nation talking about the masks, because they went back down on lockdown 2 weeks, maybe 4 weeks, she said. And she was telling them, no, it's over your nose, up to the bridge, almost between your eyes, down to underneath your chin. It has to cover this area, because people were doing that crap there, and she got in their butt about that. And I was like, that is my Bahamian grandma.
Yeah, she wasn't the prime minister though, but I get your point. Yeah, I mean, if it was a female prime minister in the Caribbean, it's probably Barbados. But yeah, in my hometown.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right.
In my hometown, Daily Affirmation by Pauline, she's saying people in the Bahamas are dropping like flies from COVID. You know, and right now there's a super spreader event going on in my hometown because elections are coming up on the 16th. So all those, what do you call those things again? All those conventions and all that stuff, like how they have the Democratic and Republican primary in the States. We call it conventions back home. All those conventions are going on. Those are super spreader events, you know, and it's all because folks don't want to mask up. So again, I send my condolences to Ogun. I'm sorry to hear that, you know. Dragon Tamer said, I believe it's radiation mixed with the shot that people are dying under the disguise of COVID. That's another thing too. If you take the shot, I don't know if I addressed this last week in Shoot the Breeze, but if you take the shot and you die within 14 days of taking the shot, they don't list that as a COVID death, which is wild because during the height of the pandemic, if you died from anything and had COVID, they listed it as a COVID death. But you see, when it comes to the ability for you to make a case against the shot itself, they wash their hands of it. They fall back and pretend like they don't know what you're talking about. But if you take the vaccine and you just suddenly die after taking the vaccine, well, why else did you die? If you were good, like a couple of people, I think Marvin Heigler and those guys were fine. Went and took the shot, and next thing you know, they died. Hank Aaron, I know Hank Aaron was older, but still, from everything that was said, he was fine. If you take the shot and you die a week later, 5 days later, I assume it's a shot. Unless it's something clearly like a heart attack. But if you can't tell me, in fact, there's a young woman, a Haitian lady in New York here. She was like a political talking head. She used to be on TV. Something Charles. She died suddenly, and up to now they don't want to tell you. But I know from a friend of hers, they don't want to tell you that she died from the shot. In the chat, KW7 says the mandates that Jim Crow Joe Biden made are unconstitutional. As Amos Wilson taught, Urugu doesn't care about laws. The laws are only as strong as the enforcement. Yeah, they don't give a shit about laws at all. They only enforce that stuff around us. Why do you think a white person could go and chew out a cop? You know, Dave Chappelle had that great joke. A white boy could be high and go ask a cop for directions. The cop knows he's high. He smells the weed. But it's a white boy. He ain't gonna do him nothing. Let me or you try to do that shit and see what happens. Right? Daily Affirmation by Pauline says, to Ogun, condolences to you and your family. The matron echoes similar sentiments. So that was the last prompt for tonight. I'll do a station ID. Any last thoughts, opinions, comments you want to drop? Let me say it now. Drop it now. When I come back from the station ID break, if there's nothing in the chat, we're gonna bounce. If there's something there, we'll discuss. All right? So stay tuned. I'll be back on the other side.
You are listening to the Bitter Medicine Podcast on KWAZ Radio.
This is D Webb with the Harsh Reality Podcast, asking you to tune in where we tackle the news of the day that affects our community, only on KWAZ Radio.
Peace, family. This is Oni, inviting you to listen to the pro-black perspective, where black problems are addressed with black solutions.
Greetings, fam. Tune in to The Learning Curve with me, the Revolutionary Matron, on KWAZ Radio. Have you ever considered joining KWAZ Radio? Each of our hosts shares their unique perspective with you. You might have a perspective that needs to be shared. If that's true, hit us up at kwaz.radio@gmail.com. What are you gonna do? What you gonna do?
You are listening to the Bitter Medicine Podcast on KWAZ Radio.
And we're back. So make sure to check out all those shows, especially the summit, the Solution Summit from earlier today. It's a worthwhile listen. Do it while you're cleaning your house or what have you, while you're washing dishes, whatever. It's a worthwhile listen. You're going to wish you were actually there live when it was going down. There's no comments in the chat, but I know Kare said he wanted to say something. Kare, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I'm going to add this for KW Dawn 7. Well, Jim Crow Joe, if he's so losing patience, why don't he go smoke crack with his crackhead son, Hunter Biden?
Right? That'll give him some patience. Right? Matron, you have any last word?
Just everybody prepare yourselves. You know, one of the things I've been highlighting on my show is making sure and asking you guys and reminding you, so you hear it probably every day that you talk to me. Do you have enough water? Do you have your staple foods? Do you have the resources that you need to be relatively independent or an interdependent network, so that not so much bugging out, but just so that you can be safe as possible.
Yeah, my last word, well, before my last word, Dragon Tamer says they raise the artificial frequencies from the radioactive towers, people with weak immunity on opiums plus the genetic diseases and the shot, but they don't want you to know, so they call it COVID. That sounds like the 5G talk. I'm not really, I don't really subscribe to the 5G talk. I don't. But, you know, if you do, that's fine. What I want, and this is going to be my last word, we got to hold each other accountable. We're all we have is each other. We got to look out for each other. If you care about your community, when it comes to this C-19 stuff, wear your mask. Social distance. I'm coughing, but I don't have the COVID. Trust me, I got tested yesterday. I got my results today, right? Get tested if you feel funny, right? Do the things to prevent getting it and transmitting it, right? We already suffer from enough. We don't need to suffer from this shit as well. When it comes to mental health, like the matron was talking about, feel free to hop on the Discord and hit up myself. I would dare say on the Discord, you could DM Kare, you could DM the matron, DM myself, you could DM Daily Affirmations by Pauline, etc. I'm sure she'll have an uplifting word for you. Right? You could post in the general in the general chat, in the general category, and someone will come through and talk to you about whatever's going on. We gotta start lifting ourselves and each other up. All right?
And also you can find us on all our Twitters too.
Right. You can also follow us on social media. For me, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Just look up the Bitter Medicine Podcast. You'll find me. Also, make sure to subscribe to all the other shows. If you haven't subscribed to this show, go ahead and subscribe to this show as well. Also, subscribe to KWAZ Radio's YouTube channel. We really have some things coming up. I know I've been saying it for a little bit. It was just figuring out the logistics of it. I think I figured it out now. We're going to start having some stuff up there that's going to be shareable content. Right? So like in these, like for example, if there was a particular part of this show tonight, as a matter of fact, I'm going to ask the crowd here tonight, if there was a particular part of this show that you really liked, tell me what part of the show tonight you really liked that you think will be a nice clip to produce and put out there on the KWAZ radio channel as short clips that people could tune into and share on their social media with others. Is there something tonight that was discussed or said? Is there a certain topic that we went over that you think will be a good couple-minute clip to put out there? I'm going to actually wait around for you guys to answer that question. If you don't answer, then
mental health part.
If you don't answer in the chat, I'm going to assume you guys didn't think nothing was worth making into a clip. Kare just said the mental health conversation. I agree with that. I agree with that. Matron, do you have an idea?
Yeah, I kind of liked the part about our community taking responsibility for each other, you know, the accountability part. you know. And then the part where we said, you know, we need to stop being scared, you know, and different things like that, you know, just as a community, we need to take this on. Your part about the hammer, that comment was really good too.
Oh yeah, I've said that before, but sometimes you have to reiterate it, you know. A man could build a house with a hammer, or he could bash your goddamn skull in. It's how you use the tool, you know. So yeah, that might be a nice clip to clip out of this episode too. I personally like the part where I was talking about Tyson Bedford going straight into Jamaican patois when asked if he was gay. No one?
Yeah, I like that one too.
You know. Me gay, the blood cleat fly. You know, I mean, that dude surprised me. The shit was wild. Ogun says, don't apologize. No, I just want to give condolences. Not apologies so much, but condolences. I am sorry to hear it, you know, but condolences to you and your family. Daily Affirmation by Pauline says, I agree with the mental health. So the mental health would be a nice clip. Ogun says he appreciates the love to the matron, myself, Daily Affirmations by Pauline, and everyone else who gave him condolences. So I want to thank you guys again for tuning in. As always, you guys know you can post your Shoot the Breeze topics throughout the week on the Discord. The link is in the description as well as pinned to the chat. Post your topics. The more topics, the better, actually, because it's more conversation for us to have. I want to thank Kevin Carre and the revolutionary matron, Rev, as she's known sometimes, the matron as well. Thank you guys for being on live. And again, for you guys listening, you could always jump on the Discord, jump on the on-air channel, and you too can be heard during the conversation. I will be back Tuesday. I'm going to have a pre-recorded episode. Again, I'm reading the book Nationhood. I think people have been liking that reading so far. Sorry, Nation Building by Akoto. So tune in for me continuing another hour and a half, 2-hour read from that book. It's all about how the nation build and how education plays a part in nation building. So we're serious about talking about an African nation, and in particular African power, and having a power paradigm behind us as Africans. That book is a good resource. Tune in to hear about it. I'll be in the chat as much as I can during the premiere to chop it up with you folks during that episode. Again, next Thursday I'll be back live, and then next week Saturday again we'll be doing Shoot the Breeze. Okay, thanks for coming through tonight. I'll be on the Discord for a little bit after. If you want to jump on the Discord to chop it up until about 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we can do that. Until next time, peace.
Thanks for listening to the Bitter Medicine Podcast with your host, Koku. If you like what you just heard, we hope you pass along our web address, bittermedicineblogs.com, to your friends and colleagues, and share our show to all your social media. Be sure to check out our archive section on our website for previous podcasts. This has been a KWAZ radio production. Join us next time for another session of the Bitter Medicine Podcast. Follow us on Facebook at Bitter Medicine Show, Twitter, Bitter Meds, Tumblr, Bitter Meds, Instagram, Bitter Medicine.